Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 3, I think, of the recruitment website show. We've made it. I think it's episode 3. Got a bit confused there. Hi there, Keith. How are you? How's your week?
I'm okay. Yeah, week's been okay. It's been busy. I feel
Busy week.
Yeah. It's just like no kind of like mega projects or anything at the minute, but yeah, there's lots of stuff going on, lots of stuff to do. So it's been good.
Yeah, same here.
All
It's
right.
been lots of little things to do this week, and like lots of emails and lots of things coming at you all at once, which has been interesting. But yeah, overall, it's been a good week. And the sun's shining outside, which is also nice. So thank you very much to everyone for joining us. If you are listening to us live, we are on LinkedIn. We are also on the Recruitment Website Show YouTube channel. So please let us know in the comments who you are, where you're listening from. And if you have any questions for us about recruitment websites, we'll try and get to those at the end. Always good to get some audience interaction with this. So today's episode, we mentioned it in the end of last week's episode, we're going to look at structured data, in particularly Google for Jobs with recruitment websites. And we're going to look at what that is, what the benefits of that are, what that's going to give you in terms of, best practices, and also how to actually do that with your recruitment website. And I suppose how to check whether you are doing it with your recruitment website, because it might be that you sat there thinking, I have absolutely no idea whether I am or I am not. So that's what we're going to cover in today's show. If you haven't already and you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe to the channel. Then you can get every episode straight into your homepage or wherever they arrive. And if you ring the little notification bell, you will also get notified somehow. An email or something will find its way into your inbox and tell you that we're going live. So please consider doing that if you want to. So Google for Jobs. Let's get started then. What is structured data, Keith, and Google for Jobs? That's what people want to know.
Yeah, I'll get to that right away. Just before I start, just in case, I don't know what the connection issues are like or how it looks to people viewing and listening right now, but I know my internet is slightly dodgy at the moment. I'll be hopefully back in my proper office next week, but just apologies to anyone listening or watching if my connection's a bit dodgy, but let's go for it and see how it goes. So structured data. So maybe we need to start with Google for Jobs first and then work our way back to structured data. So we touched on Google for Jobs last week. I don't think there'll be too many recruiters out there that don't know what it is, but just to kind of summarize, it is probably the world's biggest job board, run by Google, and it's free. So all of those things should pique your interest. So anybody can get their jobs on there if they do it the right way, which is something we'll be talking about today. So Mark is sharing his screen. For people watching, you'll be able to see Mark's screen. If you're listening to the podcast, I'll do my best to describe what we are looking at. So Mark has done a Google search for, I think, marketing manager jobs in London or something like that. Yeah, marketing manager jobs in London. And after a few ads at the top of the screen, we then have a little panel that says jobs near London. And this panel is jobs being displayed from the Google for Jobs platform. So it shows 3 jobs there, and then a little arrow at the bottom that says 100 plus more jobs. And if you click into that, you kind of enter the full Google for Jobs job board experience. And it looks a lot like most other job boards with all the Google branding, obviously. But this is what Google for Jobs is. So it's like Indeed or something like that, except Google's scraping the whole internet and
I think that's the key, isn't it? Is that what Google is essentially doing is, like it scrapes web pages to index them, it's kind of doing this for jobs. So it's going and looking at all of the websites around the world, around the internet, and it's finding all the jobs, and then it's basically collating them all back into this job board, which is what you see here. And as soon as I sort of stick jobs in the search term, so because I've typed marketing manager jobs in London, Google's algorithm and cleverness basically says, I'm looking for a job, therefore I'm going to show in the results my jobs board, if you like, the Google for Jobs system, and then it brings me into this bit. The key about this episode is looking at getting your jobs into this system and making them so they appear, so that candidates can obviously see your jobs and things as well. And there are some neat little tips and tricks you can do to do this that will help and assist Google in doing this as quickly and effectively as possible. And that's the sort of things that you need to know as a recruitment website owner to try and make sure you're doing those on your recruitment website.
Yeah.
So what was interesting is that if you haven't read it, Keith wrote an excellent article on our blog, which was about the Hot 100 recruiter websites. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Keith, it was approximately 30% of those sites were not getting their jobs into the Google for Jobs job board, if you like.
Yeah. Well, okay. So there's a little caveat to that, in that those jobs might have been on Google for Jobs, but they hadn't been indexed directly from their website. So there was no link back to their website for candidates to apply on the website. So if that job had been also posted to Indeed, for example, Google may have indexed it from Indeed, and the application button would then go through the Indeed system and not your website. So it didn't mean that those jobs weren't on Google for Jobs. It just meant that they weren't being indexed from the website, so it wouldn't drive any traffic back to the website, which I think is significant.
And that's why I would assume it's good to get your website into Google for Jobs, because candidates seeing those jobs in there are going to directly go back to your website when they click to view more information or apply or whatever that is. And then obviously once they're back on your website, that means more traffic's at your website. That's what we talked about last week, how to get more traffic to your site. And then you can start obviously marketing to those candidates and showing them more recent jobs, et cetera, et cetera. So that's probably the benefit here.
Absolutely.
So getting them in there, and obviously not everyone's doing it, because like we said, there's approximately 30% of those top 100. And I think we can assume that they are probably the best practice, maybe, if they're the top 100, hopefully.
I mean, they're certainly some of the biggest agencies. Whether they're all hitting best practices around websites, I would strongly disagree with. But as we've seen from that 30% that aren't having their jobs indexed, but yeah.
So the first thing to do then is, before we talk about how to actually get the sort of the tech in place so that your jobs can be listed, I guess it's to check whether your jobs are already listed or already have the ability to be listed in Google for Jobs. Now, the way in which jobs are indexed on this Google for Jobs is that Google will search your pages and it looks for some specific code markup on the page. Now, this code is hidden to users like me and you. Can't see it. So when we look at the page, we don't even see it. We don't even know it's there. But it's kind of some flags that say to Google, this is a job. This is the job title. This is the job description. This is the salary, et cetera, et cetera. And then Google picks that up and says, hey, that's a job. I'm going to put that into my Google for Jobs, basically. And that code or markup is called structured data. It actually occurs for not just jobs. It occurs for lots of different pieces of content on the internet. Blog posts, recipes, jobs. There's a list of, I don't know, there's quite a few anyway, put it that way.
Yeah.
And they all handle it in a very similar way. So you need to make sure that your website is using this special structured data. And one of the ways to check whether your website is using this structured data is to run it through a test. And I'm just going to, for those listening, I'm just going to share my screen again here. This is a test on Google. It's search.google.com/test/rich-results. And basically, you can paste in the URL of one of your jobs on your website. So here I've pasted in the URL of a job on one of the sites that we've been building. And it will run a scan on the site or on that particular page, and it will check what structured data is actually present and if there are any issues with it. So if you can see the test results here, Google has actually found there are 3 types of structured data on this page. we're interested in the job postings structured data, which is actually the bit that tells Google that this page is a job. And you can see if I click into that result, it tells me that it's valid. It's great. Google has seen this page as a job. It's picked it up as a job. You get a nice green tick, which tells you some positive news. And then you can actually see all the information that's been picked up here and so forth. It actually is telling me that there's 3 sort of, I don't know what they call warnings, I guess so, non-critical issues, which basically means, hey, there's some stuff you could improve there, but it's fine as it is type thing. So you can see here, Google's picked up the fact that this is a job, when it was posted, what the title, the description is, all the way down to the hiring organization, the location of the job, and even the salary and stuff like that. So the more information you can tell Google, then the better Google is going to understand about that job, and then the better it's going to be able to put it in its index into the Google for Jobs section. That's kind of the key here. So yeah, that's how you can test your jobs. I've got this sort of stuff involved. So let's say we run this test then, and we fail. We don't have any job postings. What do we need to do, Keith, to be able to?
Well, there's
start.
Yeah, there's 3 different actual formats we can use for structured data. For the technical people out there, there's JSON, LLD, microdata, and RDFA. The JSON format is the one that's recommended by Google and the one that you'll see like most people use. So
it's the easiest one to do as well, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. So what that is just, it's like it's hard to describe. It's a little kind of key array of key value pairs on a page. So it'll say like the type of structured data is. So it'll say like @type, and then a little colon, and then job posting, and it'll say like title, software engineer, description, and then you'd have the job description, date posted, valid through, employment type, hiring organization. So it's all these little key value pairs of data in a machine readable format. So it's not something that, like you said previously, it's not something you see on the page. Like a visitor to the page doesn't actually ever see this stuff. It's just for the benefit of search engines, really, and Google specifically, really. So we need to get that data onto the job listing page somewhere. Now, the good news is that most of the recruitment website vendors do this, as they should. So your name a few, like Volcanic's the obvious one. People like RecWebs and RecruiterWeb. So any of those kind of specific recruitment vendors tend to get this right most of the time, as you'd expect. If you're on WordPress, so we build websites on WordPress, which isn't itself obviously a recruitment specific platform, but has a lot of recruitment specific add-ons. The main job board plugin is the WP Job Manager plugin. That's the one that's kind of built by the people who kind of run and maintain WordPress itself, and the one that we recommend and use a lot. That does this for you out of the box. So without even really having to think about it, this data will be output on the page. So again, you don't really need to think about it. However, obviously, if you aren't seeing that data, or you are seeing the data and it's invalid in some way, then it's probably a case of talking to your website developer team or vendor, because it's not something that you can really fix yourself unless you're particularly code oriented. So it's more something you can test yourself. You can find out if it's present or if there's errors with it, and then you probably pass it on to your web team, and they should be able to sort this out for you. If not, it's probably time to find a new web development team or provider, because it's easy stuff and it's important stuff.
Yeah, and even if they haven't got something like built into the system that your website is built on, so something that will automatically grab this information from data you've already entered, for example, so you already entered a title and description and salary, even if they don't know that, you should be able to just add a block of HTML to to a page and actually just paste this code in yourself, even if that's manual. It's better than not having it. But obviously, most of these systems will actually be able to do this for you. So definitely get in touch with them about doing that, because it should be something that is available in most systems.
And you can't be expecting consultants to go and manually add like data like that, because it's never going to happen. And even if it does, it opens up loads of room for error. So it's not something that we would recommend. It's possible, like you say, Mark, but it's definitely not something we would recommend. Yeah.
So one of the things that you might find is you might find that because many of the vendors and WordPress plugins and other solutions are already doing this, you might find that, yes, your page does have this markup, this structured data, but when you test it, you're getting red flags all over the place and things are going wrong. What are the main reasons for that, then, that people might be getting invalid structured data, do you think?
Yeah, so for any of the kind of object types, so ours is a job posting, but for any of the types, Google will have required properties and recommended properties. So for the job posting, there's 5 required properties. I'll just read them off. So date posted, description, hiring organization, location, and title. Or what a job posting needs to have in that structured data for it to be valid. And then on top of that, there's a whole load of recommended properties. For example, base salary. It's not something you necessarily need. Valid through, job location type, things like that. So there's like application URLs and things. So those are things that are recommended and Google would like to see. And if you don't have them, you'll probably get one of those little orange non-critical issue warnings. Yeah. There's a full list of all this stuff. Like on Google, there's pages that tell you exactly how this should be formatted and what's required and what's recommended.
Yeah, and we can put some links to these in the show notes as well, so you can help you get to grips with this sort of stuff. But basically, the more information you provide with Google, even if you're not and if you're providing it with these sort of like non-critical ones, then the better your indexing is going to be, essentially, because the more it knows about your job. So when someone's doing a search in Google Jobs and like wants to search, between this salary and this salary, if you're providing the salary, then Google will put your job in that results. If you're not, then it can't, because it doesn't know what the salary is. So you're going to miss out there. So the more information you can provide, the better. The two that usually catch recruiters out, though, are the location, because recruiters often, rightly so, don't want to put the specific location, because candidates can clearly find out who that client of yours is. But you don't have to put a precise location. You can just put, Manchester, London, Birmingham as the location, rather than a specific address. So you don't need to do that. So you're more than allowed to just put that sort of city-based or somewhere that's more broad. But the other one is the hiring organization. So because it's a required field, you must put a hiring organization into the job. So most of the time, you better just put in your own recruitment agency as the hiring organization rather than the actual client that you're hiring for, because you have to have something in there or else it's invalid. So that's the workaround here. And sort of setting that in your website software so that it can automatically put you as the hiring organization is something that you may want to do if you don't have control of sort of adding that on a per job basis as well. So it's something to look into. But those are the two that usually catch people out in that they are invalid without them, but it's like you don't really want to put them. So it becomes a bit tricky.
There's some more complexities as well around location, especially whenever it's tied to remote work.
Yes.
So, for example, if the job is remote only, you need to set the job location type property to telecommute. The job location property is only then required if that job can also be done at a physical location. So you don't need job location if you set job location type to telecommute and there isn't a physical location to do the job. So there's a few little nuances.
Yeah. I think a lot of those have come in the last couple of years for obvious reasons with the pandemic and more jobs becoming remote. Google, I know, has made some significant changes to the way they handle that sort of structured data. I think there's a lot of requests from people in that remote jobs weren't really handled very well in this. So they've had some changes that have come in to handle that, because more and more jobs are remote jobs, which is obviously a good thing.
Yeah, I'm just going to show the URL there of our blog post on this, because like I wrote up a pretty extensive post about about structured data specifically for recruiters. So it's all on the bottom of the screen there. I'll just read it for podcast listeners. So it's highrise.digital/blog/structured-data-recruiters-guide. And you can find all this in more detail there. I know it's quite a lot to take in when you're listening or watching along. Yeah, sure. So if you want something that you can reference, everything's there.
We'll add that into the show notes as well, so that you can grab the link if you want to do that, especially if you're listening along. Thank you. So excellent. So structured data, Google for Jobs, a massive opportunity that you should definitely be trying to take advantage of. Puts you ahead of at least 30% of the top 100 who are not doing this correctly anyway. So it's certainly something that is free in terms of cost. You don't have to pay for it, but obviously you need a bit of work just to get it set up and working for you. So it's definitely worth something that you should be looking at trying to do.
Can I add a bonus point for this topic?
Because it's you, yes, go on.
An extra pro tip, and this is something that I think we mentioned on the last show as well, but it's worth mentioning again because we're talking about Google for Jobs specifically on this episode.
Yep.
And this is around the Google indexing API. So what we found with one of our clients was that jobs were getting indexed on Google for Jobs, but it was taking, I don't know, a week or a day or something. Mark, if you can pull up your screen again with the rich, the structured data test. So if we go back to that test with Google, there we go. So if you're on the rich results test page, you'll see it says crawled successfully on January the 6th, 2023. So that is the last time that Google looked at this page. And what we were finding was that Google sets a crawl frequency based on how important it thinks your site is and how often it thinks your content is going to be updated and relevant. Now, that might be once a week, it might be once a month, it might be once every 5 minutes, but that's up to Google. So what we were finding was that one of our clients who quite high profile, lots of jobs, constantly updating and adding new jobs. All those new jobs were taking days to get onto Google for Jobs, by which time they may have already been filled. The vacancy may have been filled. So we looked into this, and there's something called the Google Indexing API, which basically is a way for a website to kind of just like, I don't know, knock on Google's door and just say, by the way, we've got another job over here. Come and take a look when you've got time. Just to let Google know that there's that fresh content. And we did find that time it took for their jobs to get from the website onto Google for Jobs was quite dramatically reduced.
Definitely had an impact.
They'd get crawled and indexed much sooner. So if you are doing this, it is worth also implementing the Google Indexing API, which is quite technical. Again, talk to your web team in order to get that implemented. But
definitely. It's quite marked how the change in indexing time happened with those, which is good. I think Google implemented that because there are some content types, job postings being one of them, that are short-lived on a website. So they wanted a way for people to tell Google that this content needs crawling quickly before it disappears, type thing. And it did seem to work really well, which is great, which is good. So, definitely a good bonus tip for that. Thank you, Keith.
That's all right.
So before we go, we wanted to just mention about our newsletter that is going to be happening very shortly. So we've got set up a newsletter called the Recruitment Website Mastery Newsletter. The concept about this is giving you all tips, tricks, hints, good practice, best advice for your recruitment websites. And not sure whether that'll be a weekly or a bi-weekly or a monthly thing. But certainly, if you want to get some top tips into your inbox, then you can sign up at highrise.digital/newsletter, where you will see a form that looks like what's on the screen. If you're listening on the podcast, it's just a form. It's very straightforward. Stick your name in, stick your email address in, and we will send you some recruitment website mastery goodness at an interval that is appropriate. So if you're interested in doing that, then that'd be great.
Yeah. And
other than
next week on the show, we have another topic. Yeah, I think we're going to be talking about the essential elements of an effective job page. So like a job listings page. What are the kind of essential elements of a page? How to optimize it. So yeah, that's going to be the topic. So looking forward to chatting about that.
For sure. Yeah. Hopefully you'll be able to join us either on YouTube, on LinkedIn Live, or listening at a later date at your leisure to our podcast. But anyway, that's all for this week, I think. Thank you so much for listening, for watching, and we will see you again next week. Bye for now.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.